If you're sitting there as a veteran, not understanding the VA process and you're feeling very overwhelmed about all the videos that you found online, this is the one that you should start with because I'm gonna explain why winning a VA claim is actually one of the most simple things that you can do. Dang, what a loaded statement, right? To call this the most simple thing that you can do, yet I continue to make videos about how complicated it is and walking through everything, and it's because it ends up being complicated, but it doesn't actually start that way. So today in this video, I'm gonna walk through 5 steps that I think are the most critical for winning a claim and making it really streamlined and easy, because it's actually not very hard at the end of the day, and I'm gonna show you why that is. So the VA makes things extremely simple, and in fact, it's so simple that a lot of these claims are cookie cutter, basic things that everybody looks through, and that's why it ends up being complicated. If you have a lot of back pain and you have an MRI and a bulged disc, but you're able to touch your toes because you do yoga every day, they're gonna look at your range of motion and be like, you know what? Actually, it looks like it's not that big a deal. It might just be a 0%. It's service connected, sure, but you seem like you're fine, man. Because guess what? Simplicity doesn't always mean it's great, and simplicity doesn't mean that it's not outdated, which I think a lot of these things are actually just outdated processes that the VA has, and that's something that comes down on everybody, and everybody has to deal with this, including people at the VA who work there, who some of them might know and say, this is outdated, but this is the process I have to do. And of course, the veterans who are struggling with the process themselves and wondering, why the hell can't I get compensated? Okay, so let's simplify this process so you know that it's actually less intimidating than you might think. And let's start with the first thing that you need to make a claim successful, and that is to have an in-service event. Now, hold on, there's actually 2 things with the in-service event. One can be an in-service event for a primary condition that you're going to be claiming that happened in service during your time on active duty. And the other thing is actually going to be potentially a secondary condition that's linked to a primary condition. So having an in-service event or a primary condition is what you need to get another condition rated. If you're starting at nothing, if you're in the military, if you're within that year window of getting out, everything that you're gonna look for in the first group is going to be those in-service events. What happened in service to cause this injury, this ailment, this mental health disorder that you have documented from time in service? That's the catcher right there. You have to have it documented, and boy, have we all been there. I have had anxiety throughout my time in the military, and I shut my mouth to hopefully not let it affect my career. And that came back to bite me in the ass because I only started mentioning it about halfway through my career in the Army, and I honestly was waiting for some bad thing to happen, like getting kicked out, which seems ridiculous. I was deployed in 2017. I came back and I said, you know, I've had anxiety there on deployment, and I didn't say a damn word, and it only made things harder when I was trying to get some of my service records about having anxiety disorder, which was diagnosed later. So having this in-service event is critical, and if you're in that category that says, I've been out for a while, that is a little bit complicated because you need to go get those records. And if you don't know how to, you can go to the National Archive, which I have another video, I'll link it below, on going to the National Archive to actually gather those records if it's been a few years, maybe 10 or 20 years. If you have something that proves that you had an event in service, you need to go back and dig it up, because that's going to be what you're going to anchor to actually get your claim started for that primary condition. So now moving on to the second thing that makes this really simple is having a current diagnosis. Current is a flexible term, but let me just break it down for you. The VA is looking for something probably in the last 6 months that is updated. Current diagnosis doesn't mean 5 years ago, I had this one diagnosis and I've never been back to the doctor since. So guess what? You're going to be going to the doctor again. I advise this to people, and make sure that you keep yourself in check as an individual. This is up to you and your responsibility. If you've had a diagnosis, make an appointment with the primary care to get a checkup and bring up that diagnosis again so that it is current. Within a year window of you wanting to make this claim is probably your best bet. The sooner the better, while you're having a track record, but really you're taking that current diagnosis paperwork and you're bringing it with you as evidence. If you don't have a current diagnosis, they cannot link something from service because they don't know that you actually have a problem. I had a current diagnosis for my back. I had an injury, and I only had proof of this injury because I'd gone to the doctor multiple times. I had a bulge disc that was getting, I guess, rebulged. That might not be the right terminology, but moving around every few months, and I kept having to go back to the doctor because of extreme pain, lack of ability to walk, lack of ability to get out of bed at one point. It was becoming excruciating and exhausting, and I had a very good track record of just going to the doctor. And when I actually started my claim on this again and got denied the first time because I didn't bring any of this with me, the second time I brought it with me, and it was very clear that I've had was a current diagnosis still. Now, the third thing, this is one of the biggest things that can definitely win you a claim, and it's the hardest to get, is a nexus letter. A nexus letter is a statement from your doctor saying, this is more likely than not from service at this exact event this veteran was telling me about. You're going to your doctor. This might be in the form of having like an LOD and a track record in service from a doctor saying, oh yeah, this happened from service. He went to sick call. He had a sprained ankle. He has a long-standing injury. Or this could be outside of the medical field within the facility. Let's say if you're in the National Guard, you're going to your private doctor saying, I need you to write a letter because I've talked about this. This happened while I was at drill weekend on deployment. I've been dealing with it, and they're writing that letter on your behalf. So they'll give you the diagnosis, and you'll have that in a record, in a chart that says, oh, he came in for anxiety. Here's some notes. That's not the nexus letter that you need. The nexus letter is them speaking and writing on your behalf that says, this is something he has talked about that happened from service. I'm verifying that I believe this happened from service. These are not easy to get. If you have a good primary care doctor, this might not be very challenging. You can pay a doctor for it too. I don't really believe that's a good standing methodology for it because the VA will see this random name of a doctor that you've only gone to one time that writes this awesome letter, while the other times you've never gone to the doctor for this again. It's gonna look a little bit suspect, isn't it? So having a nexus letter is a superpower. It's probably the biggest thing that can get you that leap from getting it approved quite easily because you are having an MD on your side that says, this is from service. I'm verifying that the in-service event they've described matches the diagnosis that I'm currently seeing and treating them for. But if you can't get one of those, let's go on to the fourth thing, which is going to be personal statements and lay evidence. We're going to actually combine these together. So I say personal statements is different than lay evidence. It's kind of the same, but personal statements is what you write about yourself, and you should write a personal statement for everything that you are claiming, separate from the other things you are claiming. I wrote a personal statement for my back, for sciatic pain, for migraines, for anxiety disorder, for GERD, for tinnitus. I wrote a separate one that was between a page or 2 pages long for every single time and every single claim. These are not lumped into one thing. I was not lazy about this. I was articulate about the symptoms that I was having, how it's affected me, the dates, and I was annotating and linking it to evidence, which if you haven't seen my other video, I'll put it up here about writing a good personal statement. It is crucial to write this thing out well. This is the biggest thing that you have on your side that you have control of, and it's going to also be presented in the story when you go to the CMP exam that has to be analyzed. You're talking to a doctor. They're going to ask you some questions. They're going to be checking some boxes, right? And this doctor is a consultant company that's taking your appointment with them, looking at your evidence, writing their own information down, and sending this off to the VA to get looked at, and the VA makes a decision. So what is in your best interest? Writing a good personal statement that this doctor will see in the CMP exam and the VA will see, and obviously you'll be speaking on your behalf the same way. So it's going to be the best method to make sure that your story comes across very clearly. So what is other lay evidence that you might think? Okay, well, probably the next best thing for lay evidence, besides for having a nexus letter, which is a really strong piece of evidence, is having a buddy statement. Having a buddy statement can come from a family member or a friend from service, but somebody that's kind of doing something similar to your personal statement. They're writing what you were like either before service or before the injury, writing what they've noticed your lifestyle changes are and what has happened to you from service, and annotating all this down from their viewpoint. If you're not lying, all of this adds up quite well. You have a personal statement that's your side. You have a nexus letter, a doctor, a diagnosis, all those things that make sense on the exact thing that you're claiming. Your friend's letter shouldn't be much different because they're just going to say, from my view, it looks like migraines have affected Ethan. He's had to take naps during the day. He was complaining about them to me. He didn't used to have these from before deployment. Like, those type of things should make sense naturally. But you can also give a little guidance to your friends. Like, you need to set them up for success to write on your behalf because some of your friends might not be as articulate. I come from the infantry side of the house. I was an officer, mind you. We had to actually learn writing skills. I still was better tactically than I was at writing, bar none. But there was a lot of guys that I worked with, my Joes, that I can't say were going to be the best writers. They were going to be tactically great, or they're going to be super good at individual tasks as an infantry guy. So this might be a little hard, right? So you're going to have to dig into how much information that they're going to need to provide, which I do explain in my course, but they're going to have their hand held a little bit in the storytelling process potentially. So let's move on to the last thing, number 5, which is having a positive attitude about this experience. And this, to me, is actually extremely critical and fundamental. I say that this was critical for me because I had a lot of ups and downs in this process. I spent 3 years figuring out how to find my evidence, how to bring it to the VA, being extremely depressed about it as I was getting out, handling PTSD unwell at one point in my life. And I didn't know how to go about this. I taught myself and paid for companies and talked to a VSO and did all the steps, but having a good attitude makes a difference. I always tried my best to say, you know what, this process is a pain. I'm going back to the doctor again. I'm getting denied again, but I am trying to better myself long term. And I really push that positive attitude on other people. If you're dealing with mental health, how challenging is it to get your shit together, per se, in the middle of a depressive episode that could last a week or a month, all the while you're getting a denial, or all the while you're getting a doctor that might not care about you as much. Maybe they're not your primary care doctor. They are a CMP examiner. And it is hard. It is very hard to have a positive attitude about this whole experience, because the VA doesn't make these things easy. Within the simplicity of this process, the VA makes it harder, and you're going to have to stick it out for the long run to get compensated. Every veteran has the ability to make sure that they take care of themselves. That's what the benefits of the VA are. And despite the ups and downs of the VA, if you have a positive attitude and you keep trying and you keep learning about this process and what you might be missing with your own personal case, the benefit in the long run is something that everybody has earned if they've had an issue, and everybody should make sure that they take care of themselves. I'm very concerned about some of my friends from the military and what they are doing and how they're trying to cope with these things. So I hope that the best thing that you can do is have a positive attitude to move forward in this process and hopefully win it on your side. I hope this video was helpful. Please check out the course below. Look at all the information that I have. Again, there is a big discount for everybody on here on YouTube. And if you haven't seen the rest of my channel videos, they're all free. So go check those out at least. And I'll see you guys next time.